I am live. Hello there. It's just me so far. Wilson and Paolo should be here, as usual, but they haven't shown up yet. But I figured I'd come on anyway and say hello to y'all out there. It was a big week for me at the comic shop this week. I ended up with 12 comics. And being that there were only 5 on my pull list, that's a lot of comics I pulled off the shelf. There's Paolo. Hello there, Paolo. How are you doing this evening?
I'm okay.
That's good. That's good. I was just saying how it was a big week for me at the comic shop because I got 12 comics and there were only 5 on my pull list. So I was pulling stuff off the shelves
12
like crazy
comics.
this week. There was a
Did you win
lot
the
of
lottery?
good. So for all those people out there who say modern comics suck and there's no good comics out there, I spent $54 at the comic shop this week. That's just nuts. A little extra money in my budget, so I thought I'd spend it on some comics.
Oh, cool.
See, Tit Goblin is here. Cavern of Cosmic Christmas Costly Comics. Yeah. I had 7 comics this week. Yeah, so 7 comics is probably about on point for me. But I just kept finding things that I wanted to try out. I was like, all right, I'll add this one because if I have 5 comics on my pull list, I might pick up an extra 2 or 3.
Mhm.
But whew, went a little
Yeah,
crazy.
when I had money for comics, and that was when comics had just gotten to $4. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I had been regularly reducing my output of monthly purchases.
Mm-hmm.
I had about 5 comics a month, I guess, but I was buying three.
Month.
I was buying 3 trades a month.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, I found that, like I said, back in probably around 2008 to 2010, there weren't many monthly comics that I liked. So I started buying stuff in trades. Started buying collected editions. Still buying my regular, Usagi Yojimbo, Walking Dead, whatever else had been coming out for a long time. But that was a real, lull for me in terms of comics. That it was before the Image Revolution, when Saga made it financially viable for lots of people to try their hand at being Saga. Um, but the one thing what I found with trades that I had trouble with was there's like 2 ways to buy trades. You either buy stuff you already like, which makes it hard to try new stuff.
yes,
Um, and sometimes stuff can be few and far between when you're buying. You can also, if you're just buying trades, you can suddenly find yourself not buying anything because there's
eh,
just no trades of stuff you already like coming out.
there's always trades of stuff that you like coming out.
There is, but not always. Are those spiral bound notebooks behind you, Jared, above the hat? Those are all my spiral bound sketchbooks. I fill one a year of my Surrealist automatic ink drawings, and that's where I get all my imagery from. I go when I want to draw something, I pull out one of those sketchbooks, I look through it, I find something, and that's what I draw. So I've got 22 years worth of them back there. There's like 6 to 8 image little drawings on a page times 100 pages. So I've got 10,000 drawings back there that I can choose from. That's what all those spiral books are. Season's greetings. I took an almost complete break from comics from about 2007 to 2020, really just picking up trades here or that. I think you can find yourself doing that if you're collecting only trades. That just happens.
Yeah.
I've never taken a break from comics, so
Yeah,
Those are all impressive together there. Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's where I go when I need a
Yeah,
drawing.
one of these days we're gonna get the Jared Osborne art book published by
Mhm.
Tomorrow's Publishing, 400 pages, oversized hardcover.
But the other way to buy trades is to buy cheap trades because there's so many cheap trades out there, and that's where you can try new stuff. The problem is, I found I was getting overwhelmed with trades that I had no interest in.
Hmm.
Because you pay $4 or $5 for a trade. You're like, all right, $5, I'll buy that trade. But then you can't even get 2 issues through it. It's like, oh my God, that's awful. And when you try one comic and you can't get through it, it's one comic. When you buy a trade, it's 4 to 12 comics. And like my pile of trades that I couldn't even make it through, it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm just like, oh man, this is just it's really difficult to try stuff in trades.
Hmm.
Stuff that you don't know you like. And I think that's why people eventually stop buying trades too. When they stop buying comics, they eventually stop buying trades too because it's too. I mean, it's really and if you're not buying them cheap, you're paying what, $20 to try out a book, and you're like, oh, I didn't. And how many times are you going to get burned before you stop spending $20?
Well, sometimes with the if you're not committing to a series, it's usually something closed. It's a closed story. If it ends, it's easier to get rid of it. Actually,
It's actually, I found it easier to get rid of comics than trades
mm,
because it's difficult because everybody expects to buy your trade for $5 shipped.
yeah.
So it's like not worth it.
Hmm.
It's like I'm gonna. I mean, how long is it gonna? How long is it gonna take to say? Let's say I want to list a trade on eBay. And so the whole process is going to take at least a half an hour of my life. For best case scenario, I get $3. That's just like they may as well just sit there. And I've tried like I can't even give. I have friends come over who are comic fans, lapsed comic fans. They're like, no, keep that away from me. I'll give you trades if you want some. Which is
Fine, give me
why I
trades.
have so many trades I'll never read.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have bought that Team Youngblood.
Yeah. I worked in a library for a lot of years and was getting trades from there. Yeah, I haven't, for some reason I stopped going, probably because of COVID, but I went back after COVID to the library regularly. But then COVID came back again, and I have to get back into the habit of going to the library because that's how I'd keep track of like Marvel and DC stuff. I'd just go online, somewhere in the library system they have they have the trade, and they just send it to my library. And they send me an email when it's in, and I go and pick it up. So I did that for a few years. But then I think it was also like, you know what? I want to concentrate on rereading a lot of the stuff I already have. I've got my own library of stuff. So I'm like, I
Yeah,
should really, because I found myself when I was reading a lot of library stuff, my own stuff I got, at least the collected editions, not the weekly stuff, would stack up. Like stuff I normally buy, like the Brubaker and Phillips stuff, it would sit there for months because I was reading the stuff that I had to get back to the library. Even though I didn't really have to get it back to the library because there was plenty of time to read it, but it was sort of like a ticking clock on it. Ryan Gander, a British artist, banks his ideas kind of like you do. Not in a spiral notebook, but all his images and ideas are saved for reference. Like, yeah, I scan everything in too. It's like, I'll show you one of this is my current one. Whoops. Dropped my list. I'm on, what page do we got here? I'm on page 96. This one has to be finished up by the end of December. But this right here is what I draw in it. These are just sort of off the top of my head, surrealist automatic drawings in ink, so I can't erase anything. Now, actually, the last couple of years drew smaller. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on this page drawings. Some, like I said before, 6 to 8 was normal for years. Then I was like, I kind of want to draw these smaller. Now on the back, I have the page number and the date I did it. And what I do is, matter of fact, I have a scan. I scan these in as I go along, so that when I want to make a drawing or something, and I don't have anything, in the process, I'm like, well, let me go look through my books and see if there's something that catches my eye. This is how I come up with my dreams of things covers and things like that too. And then I already have it scanned in, so I can just go, oh, they're also, I randomly choose names from the dictionary to name them. So this one's Ginger. And there's also usually a number. This is book 24 and a year. Whoops, 2023. Upside down. So they're easy to, like, I can just look through this and go page 46, book 24, go onto my computer and find that exact page and print it out in like this is how I draw them. There's a blue line one. There we go. I print out that little drawing in blue line. Usually the first drawing is done in 6x9 pieces. Like this is an upcoming Dreams of Things cover. You can see the blue line underneath there, that one line, because it was narrower. So that's basically what all those spiral-bound books are back there. Books of my drawings that I can go and look through to draw stuff. Speaking of Brubaker and Phillip, I'm a little surprised that you aren't picking up Newburn, at least for the Jacob Phillips art. I tried the Newburn. I tried the other. It's just okay. I don't dislike it, but I just found it okay. It was really the writing that didn't stick with me. The art's fine. I don't know if you've seen it's I forget who writes it. But I was just kind of like, oh, all right. That was like a Texas police story. And I thought it was okay. I picked up I think I picked up maybe the first 3 issues of New Bern, but it didn't really grab me. Did you catch up on any sleep, Paulo?
Sleeping's overrated. The birthday stream went for 5 hours total.
I saw that after I got off. I was like, wow. He went late into the night.
No, yeah, because Mind the Comics and the SBPT showed up, and and about 4 hours in, Jeff the Cantonese comic kid showed up, and he hardly got to say anything. Because SBPT was hogging all the spotlight. He was telling stories of how he and his brother, when he and his brother were publishing a fanzine, and how we all got together in the Portuguese comics community.
How are you doing tonight, Wilson?
I'm doing okay. Couldn't figure out why I couldn't hear you, and I guess the the headphone shut itself off. I was waiting for a while to log in. It just took a while.
Okay. See, Tit Goblin says, I wish I digitally archived things like you. I digitally archive everything. Everything goes out for sale. I never see it again. Only record is the Facebook business page. Wow, a good 350 plus works gone with only an iPhone picture. Hey, at least you're selling 350 works. That's good.
Yeah, that's very true. I wish I had copied my my first set of sketch cards that I did when I was at Marvel, because there was a lot of them made at that time. We were getting $1 a piece, so we did FedEx boxes full of cards, and I think I may have copied 9 altogether from back then. and we were just rushing to get them out. They were really rough cards. Every now and then one will pop up on eBay.
Do you know this one?
Yes, I do. Yes, I know those well. The Stan Bunch Bucketheads, the
AIM agents.
AIM agents, yep. So
These
for those who don't know,
these were the very first sketch cards.
Yep.
Were you there for round one of the sketch cards?
Yes, I was.
98, yeah.
1998 sketchograph cards that they were called. And it would basically, you would buy some cards and you had a chance to get an original sketch done by a Marvel artist. The Skybox Entertainment, I believe, was the company that was doing it. I do not know if we owned Skybox at the time.
Yes.
Or we ended up buying them a little later.
Nope, they owned them at the time.
They owned them. So as the legend goes, they were just a couple of bucks. They're supposed to be sketches, a real quick sketch. And then people started sending in practically paintings for $5 because if we did it in color, it went up a little bit.
No,
now, allegedly,
how it started out was their idea was they were going to get big name Marvel artists to do it. However, I think they were paying $2 a card. And Jim Lee or whoever is not going to draw a $2 card. So that's when they went down to the bullpen and said, who wants to draw cards? And that's when Steve Bunch, Dave Sharp, I forget who else was drawing them, but a whole bunch of people were like, we'll draw cards. And there was like a race to the bottom.
Very much so.
Because when you're getting $2 a card, you can't, in order to make money, you have to spend 2 minutes on the card.
Yep.
So I can remember Dave Sharp was like, he was so proud of himself. He started drawing Mysterio.
That's a good one.
Yes, but then he was like, I drew Mysterio. But then Bunch came in with 200 AIM agents just like this. And they ended the project after Bunch's 200 AIM agents. They were just like, don't bother anymore. We're done.
So you had allegedly, because these are stories I've heard about during that time.
Yep.
You had artists like Mark Texiera practically painting them. The bigger name artists did get more money.
They did
not
like a
much.
couple, though.
Right. They only did a handful of them.
Yeah.
But allegedly, they were so good, somebody at Skybox kept them. And didn't even put them into the packs. Now, this is what I've heard. Okay. I have no way to confirm any of this. What was going on was at some point, Darren became the point man at Marvel for the cards. So basically, Darren
he was assistant art director at the time. I think he became art director even after Golden quit.
Mm-hmm. So we're doing these cards. We had gotten one price at the beginning. I want to say $3.
Right.
Then we were pushing out a bunch of cards. Another round came in. And then when the bucket heads started going back out, Steve was told, we're only going to give you $1.
Right.
For all those cards. So then all of a sudden a price war started going on. Well, who's getting this much? Who's getting that much? So that's where I saw it starting to fall apart at that particular time. And then eventually what would happen would be more people would come in. They got a few big name guys or known guys. Mm-hmm. They got paid a little more. But again, we don't know how many were done.
Right.
But at some point, they went down to $1. And people were just cranking out what they could. Because there was also an odd deadline for it as well. You know, can you do 3,000 cards within a week or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And it was insane. So I was, I joke around how, after that fiasco, it took about 10 years before I went back to doing sketch cards. So I did the first set, and then that was it. I walked away from it.
I could remember what had happened was, or what I was told. During this first set, they had plans to get all these big artists to do cards. And of course they couldn't. And that's when time ran out on them. That's when they came down to the bullpen in desperation, because all of a sudden their deadline was looming and no big artists were doing cards because they didn't care to do a card for $2 for Marvel.
Right.
But I can remember it was about there's VGG Russos. I can remember it was probably about 5 years after that, maybe the early 2000s, because we made fun of Bunch for his AIM agents for a long time. And I was like, let me look on eBay to see if I can find one of these AIM agent cards just for the heck of it. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of the legend of Stan Bunch, because nobody knew who he was. Steve Bunch was his name, but they could read like Stan Bunch in this. And like that, I think he did over 200 of them. And imagine you're buying, an $80 box of Marvel characters creation cards, and this is the one you pull. And, a couple hundred people did that. They all wanted John Romita cards. Instead, they get a Stan Bunch. So it was like there was the name Stan Bunch, like in the early 2000s, was mud on the card in the sketch card community. It was quite, and I got this, of course, for like $10 shipped or something really cheap. I've had it ever since. It's yellowing too. The card is actually, I don't know what paper they use, but the card is yellowing.
I would imagine they used the cheapest Bristol that they could find, because I do recall it having a tooth to it. And it took okay to color. I think that when I used like markers to ink it, it bled a little.
Okay.
But, and here's the folly of it as well, is because they tell you on the information it's just supposed to be a quick sketch, a kind that you would do at a convention, something quick. But then, and this was right before they even let us keep some cards for ourselves to resell later, and it became its own collector's market, a monster. I mean, where people were really just buying them to flip them.
Yeah,
we were only getting $1. And I think the highest card from that time period, I saw an Iron Man one that I drew going for $300 on eBay. And I laughed because, it took me 5 minutes to draw. Gee, I would have liked to have gotten the $300. And like I said, I was away from it for a while. It wasn't until I was lettering comics, I was lettering manga, and my manga editor went off to go work for Topps, and they were doing a set of Star Wars cards that were manga inspired. So that's how I got back into doing sketch cards, and the prices did not go up all that much. The fun thing about working for Topps afterwards, after the Star Wars manga set, was that they did encourage you to just draw on your own art style. You didn't have to be photorealistic. It was okay to be just a quick sketch. You got a few bucks more if it was in color, and that was pretty much it. It kind of like it kind of got to a point where you could afford to do, spend a weekend doing a bunch of these cards, sending them in, making some money, and then when you got your own artist proof cards back, you could sell that, and that sold pretty well for a good amount of time. It kind of evened it off that you could make a living doing a lot of sketch cards.
I got a Fred Hembeck AIM agent too. His stuff has been doing well on eBay. I noticed lately. Some of it, like this is a genuine. When did I get 2013? I got this, so it's been 10 years. that he's been doing them. But I see some of his sketch, and they were all going for because I buy what are they called? ACEO cards. They're art cards. They're artist cards on eBay sometimes. I got a bunch of them here. But and this is, but at the time, 2013, I probably got this for $10. Most of them were anywhere from 10 to $20. I saw some earlier this year. I haven't looked in a little while, going for 70, 80, $100 of Hembecks. I was like, whoa, I'm glad the market heated up for them.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was a pretty good. But here are some of the art cards I buy. These aren't comic book related. 2007. It looks like I got this one. These are just little. And I traded some little original pieces of art. This one's 2020, so it's one of the latest ones I got. These are just little pieces of art that people sell. Little abstract design there. Little flowers going on. So, and I get these around $10 a piece, maybe, and they're all like they're usually this 2007 on the. They're paintings. So they're. This is one I traded. When did it? 2013. I traded a girl in Singapore. Some of my art for some of hers. She drew a Captain America and a Daredevil for me.
Nice.
And I drew her a couple of cards. Let's see. These are ones I bought recently. Little ink landscapes.
I like that one. That's cool.
Yeah, that one's pretty nice. Here's a gold pen one I bought recently. But yeah, there's another nice landscape. 2021, I got this one. But yeah, I like occasionally going on to eBay and buying some art cards like this. They're not terribly expensive and they're fun little things.
I've only ever traded one card with somebody, and that was at a convention because she would make a bunch of sketch cards for the purpose of trading with other sketch card artists, and no one ever wanted to trade with her. And it was like, and her art was great. It was just one of those things that I eventually did trade a card with her. Let's see if I have it in this album.
Let's see. 200 AIM agents destroy the Marvel sketch card. Someone needs to make a mini comic of that.
So this is my one
blow
album.
Your hand muscles out for $1. Sounds like a classic Marvel great 90s business idea.
So this is my set of sketch cards by other artists.
Hey, it's a Chris Giarrusso. I recognize that.
So we have a Chris Giarrusso.
Yeah, we'll get it big for you.
So
Jacob
we have
Chabot there. Tim Smith 3.
Yep. This one's Alita Martinez.
Okay.
I forget who this person is off the top of my head. Rom the Space Knight. I forget who drew that. That's probably most likely Chris Batista.
Alita Martinez, she was like the one who was Joe Quesada's assistant or something? And worked at Marvel?
Yes, she was working at Marvel at the time. That's when I met her.
Okay.
A Fred Hembeck of his Clown.
Look at that.
And these two guys, I forget this guy's name. He does a comic strip with these characters. And so does this person. Web comics. So my collection of sketch cards were really of people drawing their own IP characters.
Right.
And the person who I was saying that I did a trade for, she did this card here. Her name is Shawnee Williams.
Okay.
I forget which card I traded with her because I do a ton of them of my own characters as well as the Marvel and then the Topps characters because I was doing those for years. I even still have a few.
Have you ever done sketch cards, Chris, for like a company?
Yeah.
How much did they pay you?
I did like a Mars Attacks, some Mars Attacks cards.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it was Tops.
Mars Attacks is Tops.
Yeah. I want to say it was like $5 each. The end.
The end. I know you sold them on your own website.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's why, like, I feel like I've had other offers to do sketch cards, and I'm like, well, I can sell them for more if I just whenever I want to of anything I want to draw, and I don't have to deal with a third party. So, like you guys are saying,
you were getting like $20 a card on your website or something like that. Was it that much or
10? And I recently, like in the last year or so, I went up to $10.99.
Oh, okay.
for that's like a full color, usually just a headshot.
Okay.
Like actually, I got some here. Like that's basically like something like this.
Yeah.
I think I showed you this last week.
Okay.
John Constantine.
John Constantine.
And I got a Gambit. But these were requests. I haven't gotten back into like the daily postings. There just hasn't been time.
And have you ever done art on a Post-it note? I have like the last time I did art on a Post-it note was when I was filling in for Daisy. That was like 2 or 3 summers ago. I was filling in for Daisy at her job for a week, and I left her art on Post-it notes. I think she said somebody stole one of them off her desk.
I've seen Todd Knock do those.
What was that?
You familiar with Todd Knock? Artist Todd Knock. He's very good.
Oh yeah, I think I know that name.
But he's done a lot of Post-it note art, and I'm just like, how do you draw on such a flimsy thing? But like he kind of like, I mean, you know, his stuff's so good. It's like it doesn't matter what you draw it on. You know, someone's gonna want it. And he does a lot of like using the color of the Post-it to like it just might be a solid red Post-it, and he'll do Spider-Man, and then he'll just throw some highlights on there, and it looks really cool.
My buddy Darren, he used to do on his Instagram art on Post-it notes, and he would post it every day. It would just be artwork, and he had tons of artwork that he did. It was like, you know, trying to talk to him. He did enough that it's like you could put a book together. And it's like you could put a mini book together, probably the size of a Post-it note, with all this artwork on it. But he would post it on his Instagram every day. It would just be a new piece of artwork on a Post-it note that he would just, when he had time, he would draw it, and he would stick it around his computer until the point where his whole desk was just full of Post-it notes of art of the day type of thing.
To tie it back into Paulo's birthday show last week, I'll have to show off what was the name of the racing fan? Kyle?
Yeah.
When I was showing the Batman Houdini thing that I posed for Mark Chiarella for some of the pictures, and Batman beat me up. And he was like, "Why do you only have one copy of it? I'd have a copy framed. I'd have a copy." And I was like, "Why do I only have one copy of it? I've only had one." So I went, and I now have 3 more copies of Batman Houdini. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do with them. But I ended up getting them from the same seller on eBay. First, I went and checked mycomicshop.com, and they have it. It's only like $2.50 for, Batman Houdini, very fine, whatever it is. Then I was like, well, let me see how much they cost on eBay, because I don't order from mycomicshop.com except maybe once or twice a year. So, shipping would, of course, drive the price up. And I noticed them. It was actually more expensive on eBay in terms of, I think most copies were between $5 and $10 shipped. So I saw this one seller had 3 copies of it for sale. I put it on my watch list. He sent me a 10% offer, and I think it was $13.50 shipped for the all 3. So around $4.50 a piece, which I thought was fine. But yeah, now I have more copies of Batman Houdini. One I'm gonna have to cut up just so I also bought the digital version of it on Amazon. When I was looking for it, I said, well, I wonder what the price is on Amazon. And they had a digital copy on Amazon for $2 or $3. I can't remember what. So I'm like, oh, may as well get the digital copy in my Kindle app. So I went from 1 copy of the comic I appeared in way back when to 3 copies and the digital version.
Nice.
All because Kyle was like, why do you only have 1 copy? And I went, I don't know. Sequential geek. What up, geniuses? Y'all are geniuses. Set Paulo was probably the smartest. Yeah. Super Paulo Costa. Super genius. I like the sound of that.
The Sequential Geek has been doing 1 hour plus videos of hauls again, and I had to comment on them.
I was checking one out this week, but I didn't make it all the way through. I think I made it half an hour through and haven't gone back to it yet.
He showed a couple of issues of Larry Gonic's Cartoon History of the Universe.
Okay.
And I commented that probably from the 60s and 70s indie comics movement, Larry Gonic is probably the most financially successful of all of them because his comics appeal to libraries.
Yeah.
And they're translated. So you can. So he's probably the one who's made the most money. I think he's a mathematician or an economist, Larry Gonic, because he has a book about economics and one about mathematics.
I always saw that book, probably at the library, but I never read it.
Cartoon History of the Universe is pretty good. I've read it. I haven't read the other ones. I should probably try to read Cartoon History of America. Cartoon History of America is probably fun. I'm not sure about the economics one.
I don't think I've ever seen those books at all.
Well, because right now they're available. When they came out, I think it was Last Gasp who published them as comics. But nowadays you probably have to find them in hardcover books, and they should even be published by a HarperCollins or something.
My throat has suddenly dried out and made me cough. One thing I read this week, I got this last week, the new Brubaker and Phillips, Where the Body Was. And its description is a masterfully told puzzle box mystery with a fiercely beating human heart. Jordan Harper. The mystery doesn't show up until 3/4 of the way into the book, so I wouldn't really describe it as a mystery. And it's not much of a mystery, even. It's more like, have you guys ever heard of what is it called here that he mentions? It was in the beginning, pardon me. Brubaker says, I think they were called map stories. He was like, I was really into map stories. Must be at the end.
Math stories?
MAP.
Why was 6 afraid of 7?
Why?
Because 7 killed his parents. Wow.
Wilson really liked that one.
Well, just because I know the punchline to the joke is different than that.
Let's see. What does he say? What does he mention it? Book with several different stories. So it all I think there was somewhere he called it a map story. He got obsessed with map stories. And here's the map that's in the book of this neighborhood. So this whole story takes place in this neighborhood. And it's told kind of like a documentary. Because sometimes the story takes place in when? 1984. Oh, yeah, summer 1984. But sometimes the characters are talking directly into the camera 20 or 30 years later. So it's a story about their youth. And he gives you a cast of characters here. We get the juvenile delinquent, the teenage runaway, man with a badge, hardworking psychiatrist, neglected wife, private investigator, a kid who plays superhero, homeless veteran, and neighborhood watch. So it's all about the stuff that goes on in this neighborhood. And there's kind of a mystery near the end, but it's not really mustard. I don't know. I guess you'd call it a map. It's all the stuff that's taken place in this neighborhood, all the shady stuff, all the weird stuff. But it was good. I enjoyed it. Writing the book, I obsessed over the map and various characters moving around on it. I sat with my notebook and filled pages about them and where they went and what they cared about, what secrets they kept. It was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had as a writer. So, what is that? Never go to the. But that was where the book started. The puzzle idea of a book with several different stories overlapping on one street. Something worthy of a map and legend at the beginning. Oh, there's it. Which has honestly been a career goal ever since I fell in love with the map back pulp books from the 40s. You ever heard of a map back pulp book? I assume there's a map in the back of the book. But I've never in my life heard about map back pulp books from the 40s.
Yeah, I've never heard of them. The closest thing is I read a lot of Iberian age stories. So they usually will give you a map at the beginning. You know, kind of.
I am always thrilled to see a map at the beginning of something. I just am.
Right. So it's like I've read a lot of books like that where you had the map at the beginning.
Right.
And you look at it and goes, I'm not going to remember any of these things. But here are some names. And it's like, so you kind of know the general area.
You always flip back and check it.
Yep. And that was about it. But the way what you're describing, it's a great concept, but I just never heard of it.
I'm gonna have to look what map back pulps from the 1940s were, because I have no idea.
You know, the closest thing I've seen is like television shows. There was a show on HBO for a while that the premise was you were across the street and you were looking through a telescope into the building across the street, and there was a different story happening in each one of the apartments. That's like the closest, you know, that everything's happening in one apartment building. That was like but that was, visual. That was television, not in a pulp book.
Mm-hmm. I just found 2 websites talking about map back books. Apparently, it was a line at Dell in the 40s and 50s. They would have if the story set in New York, they'd have a map of New York City in the back.
Marvel did that once. An Amazing Spider-Man, I want to say 278 or 279, somewhere around that point. Spider-Man's in a black costume. It's a story that takes place in New York, not surprisingly, during a blizzard. And I think Wendigo is like the main villain. And they give you a map of where this adventure took place in Manhattan. Because I think he went across like Central Park and whatnot. And it showed you like the key areas of what happened, where these events happened. And I thought that was pretty cool because, someone who lives in New York, you kind of know these spots.
Right. Interesting. I'm going to say yes. That's one. Yes, Gonix comics are fun. I love the documentary type books as well as historical fiction. Historical. I love. You have the Rick Geary Treasury of Victorian and 20th Century Murder books. That's one of my favorite series. I have them all up on my shelf over there. That's great. With all your knowledge, have you ever considered making some kind of history of comics type book as a comic or not? No. You know what it is? I know so many people who know more about the comics history than I do. So I'm always like, they'll make it.
Or they won't. What you have to do is interview them.
Yeah.
And with the data they gave you, you write the book.
Exactly. That's what I'll have to do as a comic, right?
And if you're not sure about something, you ask them.
Yeah. Make one comic Cavern of Chaos collab type book. Paulo, I got invited to a restaurant owned by an old Portuguese couple and was excited to try some authentic food. They ended up making Newfoundland food for us. I was so bummed.
Go back and complain. Hey, tell them you have a friend in Portugal recommended Portuguese food. I find out where they're from in Portugal. See if because we have different recipes from. I imagine that they're trying to do some sort of seafood or fish. Or mostly fish menu. So, but it depends on which area of the country they're from, the type of fish that they cook.
Sequential Geek wants to know why they chose Newfoundland, because that's where Tit Goblin is, I assume. Jigs dinner, fliggy duck, cooked moose, cod. Y'all making a zine instead of a comic, man?
Yeah, zine.
I'll make a zine.
We can make a zine. 200 images of 8 agents.
That'll be our zine.
It'll be fun. We can have the same image of we can have the same image of an aim agent, and in the back there will be a biography of the agent, and one of the.
It'll be a map so we can show where it's living.
No. We'll have 200 different, but it's always the same image, but we'll have 200 biographies of agents.
Advanced idea mechanics. One more question. Do you have any collected original art? If so, what kind? I collect original art. The cheap kind, generally.
That's why I have a bunch of the sketch cards that I do, because they're easier to collect, a little easier to store.
I've gone on. I haven't in a while. Like in the aughts, I did it a lot. I'd go on eBay and look for comic book original art, usually around $100 and lower a page. And I found some good stuff. I found. Random stuff. I found some indie stuff from people I never heard of before, but I like the pages. I bought some Randy Green's Marvel stuff, who's Chris Gerusso's studio partner. He's one of the studio guys.
One of the guys
I
here.
bought some of his pages.
Yeah, I kind of
I
do the
liked a
same
few
thing.
panels of them. They weren't great pages, but there was some nice drawing in them. So I went, all right, I'll buy it. And then the price was right. They weren't that expensive. So I'm like, I'll get these.
Yeah, there's various artists will post up stuff on Facebook that would link to their eBay page, and I bought artwork from various people that way because they were just like, selling these, and it was more like it wasn't necessarily the character; it was more like, oh, I like the artist themselves,
Right.
and if the artwork's affordable, why not? So I got a couple of pieces like that because they first popped it up onto Facebook, going, here's my link to eBay. I'm selling artwork here.
I got
And
a couple of pages from Tim Truman right off of eBay, directly from him.
And I got some stuff. I even like just doing a regular search, I would find some stuff that were like newspaper strips.
Oh yeah,
not even in New York, and they're not that expensive. I think for $10,
I got some random gag strips, just from like the 50s, for not that expensive. I bought one of the, what's his name, when Guy Gilchrist was doing Nancy, in the aughts. I bought one of his strips. Just because, price is right.
Yeah, exactly. I got some strips from they were a panel a day gag strip from a series called, I believe, 9 to 5. Right. So it was office humor, usually secretaries trying to find a husband type of thing. And I got I think 10 of them for like $10 each, if even. So I had a bunch of those. Wow. I mean, I still have them, but I did pick up a bunch just because they were the right price. So I just got a slew of them.
Right. I bought some original hand coloring from the early 80s. It was a backup story in Iraq, Son of Thunder, I think. I've got, the hand coloring on over photocopies just because it was a good price. I was like, you know what? I'll go for it. I'd like to have a sample of that. Why not?
Yeah, I picked up color guides from a Wonder Woman book drawn by John Byrne and was colored by her name escapes me right now. Anyway, she had posted she was getting rid of stuff on her Instagram, and it was like, oh, I'll buy one of those just because I have my own color guides, but I don't have anyone else's color guides. So it'll be kind of neat to have them because by the time I was doing color guides, it got to the point where we didn't even have to code them anymore.
Right.
So I wanted some guides that actually still had the coding on it. So I ended up picking it up from her.
Mm-hmm. Tit Goblin says the restaurateurs have relatives here. Large connection with Portugal and Newfoundland. Yeah. That goes back maybe before Columbus, they say.
Oh, yeah.
Title, 200 AIM agents can't be wrong. Have a cover missing on that Elvis cover. Inside back cover could be Reed Ribbon slab for 3 images of the same AIM agent.
I wonder how many pages into the book a dissatisfied reader would understand the joke. But one of the jokes is that one of them will be an actual beekeeper.
Another thing I reread this week that I've been reading for a while, there's so much in it. This is a Love and Rockets book of Gilbert's stuff. Human diastrophism. And in case you don't know what diastrophism is, which I didn't. Oop, I think it's upside down. There we go.
Let's pretend I don't know what it is.
Diastrophism is when the tectonic plates move under one another. So it's the movement of land against each other. The mixing up of land. So it's kind of the mixing up of people is what the title means. And I got to say, I don't remember Beto's work being this confusing. Because talk about he doesn't hold your hand. Howard Chaykin's got nothing on this. Because the first, in the epic Human Diastrophism, the only full-length Palomar graphic novel to date, A serial killer stalks the formerly placid Central American hamlet. But the murderer's depredations, ghastly though they may be, are almost negligible compared to the gradual incursion of the modern world into Palomar's bliss, all the way to the story's unforgettable, subtle, yet emotionally harrowing climax. But there are so many characters in this story. Let me see. There's there's actually a couple. There's the long graphic novel and other things. It's like there is just the list of the main characters, and I think not that I've seen them, but I think it must be structured like a Mexican soap opera because there's like the characters are all intermingling with each other, having romances, and people have been angry, and it all takes place in this small town called Palomar. And in Central America, I thought it was Mexico. I don't think Mexico is considered Central America. I don't know.
Well, if we're talking tectonics, the name Central America is a misnomer.
It's a misnomer. There's only just a political thing. Yes, there's only North and South.
If it's structured like a Mexican soap opera, you're supposed to have a lot of interrupted scenes with somebody gasping.
Oh, there is. There's tons of interrupted scenes. It's like, look at, there's, 9-10 panels a page, and sometimes there can be 2 or 3 scene changes in a couple of pages. Opera. And the characters are like, keeping track of all the characters is like, whoa, even with the key. It's good. It's beautiful. His work is just beautiful. I really like this stuff. But like there was, and sometimes you don't find out what happened in the story till 10 pages later. Like there's one character, what's her name? Something Tontanzin Villaseñor. Diana's sister, vendor of fried babosas, slugs. She's the character who's kind of gone native. Whoever I don't know if they're Aztecs. I don't know. They never say who was native to this land. Oh, there's she starts dressing native. There she is there. And then she wishes that they dressed a little more warmly in the colder days. But it's like she's one of the characters in the beginning. And I kind of liked her too. She was one of my favorites because she looked real good, and she was looking to make a difference in the world. And then that something happens, you really don't know what, but you find out that somebody set themselves on fire in protest of something. And a couple of the other characters got really burnt badly trying to put out the fire and save this protester. You don't find out till like 10, 20 pages later it was that woman. And I was like so sad when I was like, that was her who set herself on fire? Holy cow. Because the guys who like one of the main characters, Luba, her husband like gets burned from head to toe, and it's like, and he's got burns in the rest of the book. So and there's like in the graphic, there's also like for no particular reason a monkey invasion of the town. And at one point, they have what they call... And so there's just these monkeys causing chaos in the town. And then at one point, they have what's called the slaughter of the monkeys, because people just got fed up, and the whole town rose up and killed all the monkeys. And that was just a random subplot in the midst of 20 other subplots.
That doesn't sound like a Mexican soap opera unless the Mexican soap opera was written by Jodorowsky.
Yeah, I've never really seen a Mexican soap opera, but in my mind, that's the closest thing it comes to. Then the end is the same Palomar stories, but they're shorter stories. And in the end, some of them move to Los Angeles and start businesses, and there's just all sorts of. You would need one of those serial killer boards with red string in order to chart the plot of this thing, because the plot is just rambling, intertwining between. I guess it's like the tectonic plates, I mean, submerged, crashing into each other. All these different people crashing into each other, and at the end is another character sheet. These are all the people who appeared in the second half of the book. And it's just like, whoa, this was the hardest read of any of the Love and Rocket stuff I've read. I just don't remember Gilbert's stuff being so he doesn't hold your hand complicated as this is. But man, is it beautiful? It's just beautiful. Good. His latest book is, I think, a collection of his. I've got a bunch of smaller books over there where he does movie adaptations of the movies in the Palomar world. So they're not real movies, but one of his characters is a B movie star in Mexico. And so and her daughter actually is now a B movie star too, who sometimes redoes movies that her mother did. So he makes, graphic novel adaptations of the movies. And his latest book, which just came out, I think it collects like 2 of the previously printed ones and a new one. Plus, I think it added pages to the previous ones. I was like, wow. Those are easy to. I mean, the movies are weird, but the graphic novels are easy to follow. Not like that. Woo! He said it took me a long time to read that. You guys still have to read some Love and Rockets.
Yes.
Yes, I do. I have to read.
I definitely do. I've known about it for years.
Yeah.
I never picked up an issue.
You're better off picking up one of the books.
Oh, yeah.
Than an issue. Pretty much any of them. What are you working on tonight, Chris? What was that, Paulo?
But not that one, right?
This one.
Don't start with that one.
This was the stuff from like 85 to 96. What are you working on tonight, Chris?
Webcomics.
Your G-Man webcomic? The trial of... Who's on trial in your comic?
Wally Wackerman.
Wally Wackerman. Who has a split personality, and one of his personalities killed someone. Maybe. He says he doesn't have a split personality.
That's what it's looking like. But, you got to... I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I would hope you do.
I assure you he doesn't.
Making up the plot as we go along.
No, I know what the I know like what the what happened. I just don't know how to make jokes out of it.
He almost said mistrial. Holy cow, we know what's going to happen now. He gave it away.
I definitely wasn't going to say mystery.
Who stole Officer Clawsom's donuts? That's the mystery.
Yeah, I would tell you what the mystery was in this, but it really would to tell any of the plot points would really give away the plot of this one, which I don't want to do. They explain the mystery at the end, but it wasn't that big a mystery. If they hadn't explained it, it would have been okay too. Like I said, it was fun, nice artwork, good stuff. And you got some comics this week, Wilson?
I did. I
want to
did
go with one?
A few books. So, no particular order. I have Spider-Boy issue number 2. So even though I did not read issue number 1 yet, I did pick up number 2. I decided I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to read the books that I got this week.
Right.
And I'm not lost. It gives you, at the very beginning, it gives you a little bit of information. So apparently at some point in time, Spider-Boy was the sidekick of Spider-Man, but he was erased from history because he was cut from something called the Web of Life. And, eventually they did some weird totems with Spider-Man.
Oh, that's right. That's the J. Michael Straczynski, Jr. Jr. stuff from the early 2000s.
I think that's where they introduced that concept.
Yeah.
This one doesn't really cite the books that it appeared in. So reading it was a fun read. It's a kid's book, so to speak, because the main character is a kid. So this has 2 stories in one. So it's a Captain America story, and then there's a Christmas story in the back. So it was interesting because he teamed up with Santa Claus at some point, which if people don't know, Santa is a character in the Marvel Universe. He's also a character in the DC Universe.
Yeah, he's been getting some of his own comics there over at DC.
Yeah, because it's the holiday for it. One of the things by reading the books, like here's also a Superior Spider-Man. Doc Ock at one point was Spider-Man. His brain was in Peter Parker's body for a while, and he was Spider-Man for a little while. This book kind of continues the story in the sense of he did stuff as Spider-Man, and those particular villains are going after Spider-Man for the stuff that Doc Ock did. So it's interesting story. Dan Slott wrote it. Mark Bagley is the artist on it.
Now, is that in current time or set in the Superior Spider-Man time?
This is set in current time, and it basically talks about the things that he did as Spider-Man. So a villain shows up, and Spider-Man is trying to stop that villain. Spider-Boy appears in this book. And then Doc Ock eventually shows up. He doesn't have full memory of what he did as Spider-Man. The previous issue, apparently at the end of it, the memory comes back to him. And so for some reason, in the middle of Spider-Man trying to stop this other person, Doc Ock shows up and attacks Peter Parker.
So this is Peter Parker dealing with the repercussions of Superior Spider-Man.
That's exactly what it is. So I'm reading it to kind of catch up on all the Spider-Man stuff. And they also have a remembrance for Keith Giffen. Which caused me to, you read the book, we all knew Keith, we get sad about it. And then, so I read this one first, then I read the Spider-Boy, because the story kind of continues, but doesn't. It just mentions the Spider-Boy book. And I jumped because they have a salutes here, but it's almost done in the style of someone passing, but this person did not pass.
No, that's Allison Gill.
Allison Gill retired.
She retired, right? She didn't pass.
Right. So, but when I first looked at this,
you're like, somebody died.
I thought, no, I just was hanging out with her a few months ago at her retirement party, not realizing that they were basically giving a tribute to her retiring. So she worked at Marvel.
Memorialize her, and she's still with us.
Yes. So she for a number of years at Marvel, and then went over to DC. And it was funny because she was really proud of the fact that she got her last project was the Godzilla versus Kong versus JLA crossover event that's going on. She was the one that helped manufacture the sound chip to the Godzilla one.
Hold on, let me show you something before you go on, since it ties in. I got a Godzilla book this week. Yeah. This is Godzilla War for Humanity, and it's issue number 3. I thought it was 1, but I didn't realize it was 3, but I would have bought it anyway. Just because I really liked the art in it. I was flipping through I bought so many books this week. I bought 7 extra books, I think I said. And it's got this sort of Disney manga by way of the Undergrounds look to the art. And it's kind of really colorful. But just, flipping through it made me go, you know what? I'm gonna pick that one up just because I like the art in it.
I know I got the first and second book. I didn't get that one.
And the art is by, what's his name? Jake Smith. And the colors by Valentina Pinto with Russ Wutan on letters. But I really liked the way it looked, and it read very well too. But and I'm not a big Godzilla fan, but there've been a lot of good Godzilla comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of them. So I always keep my eye out on those Godzilla comics just because I know they always have some interesting artists on them. And this Jake Smith, I liked his stuff a lot. And the story is I was like, and like that, I just read issue 3 and I wasn't lost at all, really. So 3 giant monsters are attacking the city. And this group who has some sort of mecha Godzilla wants Godzilla to help him, except he's on some island. He's on some island hanging out with Baby Godzilla. Mm-hmm. I forget Baby Godzilla's name.
Minya.
Gadzuki?
It's not Gadzuki.
No, Gadzuki is from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon show. So in
that's
Gadzuki.
Right, Gadzuki only ever appeared on the cartoon show.
So they decide to kidnap. Let's see, to snatch Manila. I guess the name is Manila.
Mm-hmm.
They decide to snatch Manila and bring the kid back to the city so Godzilla will fight the 3 monsters. That's their plan. But I really enjoyed this. Good Godzilla comic. I'm gonna have to find the first 2 issues and read the rest of it because it was very enjoyable. Who's putting this out? IDW.
Yeah, they've been doing a good job with the Godzilla books. Yeah. They're really out there. They've been doing some one shots that are like they're pricey. They're $7.99.
Yeah,
$8 books, but you get a big size book
right
with it, and they're each like a one shot of a particular kaiju that they're focusing on. Whether or not Godzilla's in there, we don't know. But to me, I'm guessing story wise, they're leading up to something big. But they're giving you each individual. It's almost like the Avengers, where you get one movie per character, and then maybe at the end there'll be something all together.
They'll all team up,
or at least all be in one big monster book.
Mm-hmm.
And then last.
Huh? Well, I like the art on that because the coloring looked like somebody was coloring with a black and white comic with crayons.
Yeah, it was just brightly colored. There was no real color, mood to it. It was just like colored in with bright colors. It was good. It was fun.
Yeah, but it's that charming amateurish.
Yeah,
that we don't get in comics because now everything's done on a computer.
Right. And as Jared pointed out, it has an indie feel to it.
Right. And it has a real sort of like underground comic influence too. That's what's weird too, that indie underground thing.
And it works because the monsters that they're using, those designs are very 70s designs.
Yeah. Is Godzilla a horrible father that beats his kid in the comic like he does in the movie Son of Godzilla? No. And isn't Godzilla supposed to... You got
to understand that Godzilla is a single dad trying to raise this kid, and not many monsters do that. And sure, it's tough love. He's trying to teach the kid how to use his powers. And it was the 60s. Fathers were a little heavy-handed back then. But it worked. He taught him how to go after his own bully.
Isn't Godzilla supposed to be female?
He is female in the 90s movie.
Okay.
The one with Matthew Broderick. So
I think Godzilla they call them
female.
It and they in this. They don't gender Godzilla.
Right. Historically, they've always growing up. They always called him.
Okay.
Even when Baby Godzilla showed up, because the in the '90s series, when there is a Godzilla egg, Godzilla adopts that child. So they never really put a gender to Godzilla in the '90s.
Eric P's favorite Godzilla in comics is the one in the top 10. I only read an issue or two of top 10. I never read the whole thing. That's the Alan Moore one, right? Did Alan Moore write that back in the '90s for Wildstorm or something?
Wasn't Godzilla an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point? They shrunk him down to human size.
Oh yeah, that's the Marvel one.
Yeah, the Marvel Godzilla. S.H.I.E.L.D. was tasked to chase him.
Yeah.
And at some point, he does start to shrink.
Tit Goblin says no one uses crayons. Overcoat. Chris using crayons as they chat.
Official Crayola crayons, or is that a generic type? I'm just curious.
Crayola. Crayola, baby. Only
Chris is a
the
crayon
best.
Snob. What was that, Chris?
I said only the best materials.
Yeah. The best. But yeah,
I tried a different kind of crayons once. It was like rose something.
Oh, Rose Art.
Rose Art.
I know the Rose Art.
And they were pretty impossible. So, I mean, I really am a snob about crayons. They were very difficult to use. There was noticeably decline in quality.
Eric P says top 10 has some amazing issues. Yes, that is the Alan Moore book. There's an issue where the cops show up to a restaurant to investigate a family dispute, and it is Odin and his kids. Odin. Here's a comic I bought just for its cover. That's how things were going in the comic shop with me this week. I spent $7 just for this metallic cover because I wanted it in my examples of, and I just really liked the way this black ink looked on the metallic cover. It's tough to see on screen, but it just looks really nice. And this is Something Killing the Children pen and ink edition, which means I haven't read this one all the way yet. I think it's a reprint of just the inks of Something is Killing the Children #1. But down the bottom, you get annotations from the artist, who is, what's his name? Del Eldera. What's his first name? I haven't read much of Werther Werther DELL apostrophe EDERA Del Edera. But he even gives you, down the bottom of this title page, he gives you some insight into what was going. So I look forward to reading this. I of course love process stuff about the process, so I look forward to reading what the inker was thinking. And I just really liked the way this cover came out. Sort of the black in the foreground and her lightly done in the middle ground with some tree, just some hints of foliage in the very background. It just really struck me as I saw it on this comic in the comic store shelf, and I went, you know what? I want that one.
How clean does the foil stay on it? Does it get fingerprints as you're touching it?
No, it's not. It's not real. I just spit on it accidentally and wiped it right off.
And where it's stapled, is there crease marks or anything like that? I'm always curious about the process of doing something fine with a heavy cover.
The spine is fine. Looks okay.
And does the metallic go to the back, or the back?
No, the metallic doesn't, but it's a coated. The back feels nearly as heavy because it's coated. So I wonder if the metallic is because you would think the metallic would go all the way to the back, but the metallic must be an ink they put on.
I would guess so, because I did a metallic cover a few years ago, but the whole cover, the front and back, was metallic to it.
Yeah, I don't know why just the front would be, but unless it's ink.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe it would be ink. I think would
if you pay for metallic on the front, you get it on the back too, because it's one sheet of paper. But yeah, really liked that cover. Really wanted it in a sample to show students and stuff of what you can print on.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is why I ended up with 6 first issues and a third issue this week. So I kept going, wow, that Godzilla book looked really cool. I'm like, all right, I may as well get it. This cover looked really cool. I may as well get it. And that happened for a few things here.
Yeah, I didn't get to shop around this week. I just ran in, picked up my books, and ran out. So I didn't even get to look what was on the shelf itself. So that's why I ended up picking up the books that I did. What's funny is like the reason why I asked about the fingerprints is because I had noticed in this Spider-Boy #2, since this is a black cover, just reading it, you can see where the fingerprints are right on the spot.
Marvel covers are notorious for that. That's just one of the regular ones.
It's just a regular book, and this came from me holding it like this while I was reading it, and it's like they're just notorious for that, especially with the black cover. Right. You can see it's here and there.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that one. Yeah,
and I had it. I picked up these books on Wednesday. They stayed in the bag. I didn't read them till today, and it was like, the ink is still not drying on these things.
For as long as I've been on YouTube, I've heard people complain about Marvel's covers. Now the ink comes right off in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nothing new. I have where's this one? It had a weird, here's another first issue I bought, but it's got a weird bend in it. I didn't notice till I got it home. This is Bolt Comics Beyond Real. And the blurb on the back says, an artist's discovery. When struggling artist June I'm like, struggling artist, I have to get it. Is injured in a severe car accident that leaves her boyfriend in a coma. She begins to experience strange visual phenomenon. Soon, she's able to see that we're all actually living in a computer simulation. And I really liked the art on it. I liked this when she started going into the computer simulation and things started getting weird on her. It looked a little, here she is running in the computer simulation, so things are going wrong. There she is talking to the computer simulation. So she ends up finding out she's in a computer simulation, and she's trying to talk to the computer simulation to get her boyfriend out of the coma. So now she's on a quest to get her boyfriend to have the computer simulation get her boyfriend out of a coma. But the weird dent is, I don't know if you can see it, right down in this corner. It's over here. Let's see if we you really can't even see it on screen.
Yeah, it's very hard to see it.
Very hard to see it. But what's strange is this has got a pretty thick cover stock on it, and the page stock is pretty, and it sort of looks and feels like a thumb grab, but you would have to really make a fist to make because it goes all the way through the comic. Maybe something fell on it, I'm not sure, and compressed it, but it's just a weird, I've never quite seen damage like this.
Collector's items classic.
Yeah, because like I said, my thumb fits right in there perfectly. So it's like the size of a thumb. Sometimes people grab, especially Marvel comics. You grab a comic, you can damage it just by how thin it is and how much pressure you put on with your thumb. But I don't believe I have the grip strength to be able to do that. And I got decent grip strength. So I'm like, I wonder how that happened. Here, let's see. I think you can see it inside. It might be a printing thing because there's a weird trough. Let's see if I can get that trough on camera. There you go. See it right? So it might have been something with a printer. It's like, because that looks like more of a trough. And in the inside, it looks kind of like a trough rather than a thumbprint. So that was just, weird comic damage of the week. Did you go to the shop this week, Chris?
I did set foot in a shop.
Oh.
But I didn't end up buying anything.
Well, why did you set foot in the shop?
I just my buddy who owns a couple of stores. Every once in a while, he does a road trip to go from one store to the other, like kind of drop off stuff and pick up stuff.
Okay.
And I just went for the ride along.
And he's like, "You want to go on a trip?" And you were like, "Sure."
I'm like, "Yeah, man. Let me stick my head out the window and stick my tongue out and leave the studio for once.
Get the heck out of here." So what? Oh, how are his two comic shops? What does he sell there? Mostly Marvel and DC, like everybody else.
He sells comic books.
Yeah.
Sells action figures.
Okay.
He's reporting that people are actually that all of the Energon universe stuff from Skybound is doing pretty well. Like there seems to be a lot of excitement for the Transformers and G.I. Joe stuff. So
I've seen some of the ads for it, and they look nice. It actually makes me wish I was a G.I. Joe fan.
Well, you could just read a copy of the new book, and maybe you'll become one.
I read Void Rivals. I did not become one.
Well, you said G.I. Joe.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, man.
That's what you just said.
I read the non-G.I. Joe book, so I didn't want to read G.I. Joe.
Though I did read that issue 300. That was good, I have to say. Didn't make me want to read more, but it was good. Because I didn't want to read more because unlike those people who say modern comic books suck and there's nothing to buy, there are too many good comics for me to buy them all. I've got the complete opposite opinion. There are so many good comics, I can't afford them. Which brings me to Spawn. And on my video this week, and Comic Craft commented on it, got the latest issue of Spawn. Still only $2.99. And I was reading some nice cardstock cover too. I was reading this going, I really appreciate the cardstock cover. I was reading some article this week. It may have been Heidi McDonald's because somebody started the whole, comic books are dying thing again. And there was just one
steadily for the last 25 years. They've been dying.
As John Romita said, he's lived through the death of comics at least 3 times. And he said that in 1994 or something. And one of the retailers said something like, because they're discussing how comics could do better. And one retailer was like, I don't even think price matters. It doesn't matter that comics are so expensive now. And I'm like, yes, it does. I'm like, the only reason I'm buying Spawn is because it's $2.99. As soon as it goes to $4, it's off my pull list.
Yeah, the thing about Spawn is that people are buying it as a curiosity, not because it's really interesting.
This comic's actually been pretty good since Rory McConville is writing it, not Todd McFarlane. So more big Spawn war between heaven and hell in this issue. And I really enjoyed this issue. It's actually good stuff. But I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much for $4. And I wouldn't have started buying it if it was $4.
Yeah.
I started buying it because it's the last of the $3 books, so I'm going to get it because I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Price is a big deal. I remember picking up the New Wave comics because they were 50 cents, where everything else was like 75 to $1. Right. And those were bi-weekly, and I never realized they were like 14 pages per book. But I was happy to be paying 50 cents for those books.
And price might not matter that much for Spider-Man and Batman. But for everything else, I'm pretty sure it matters a lot. Because there are people who are going to buy their Spider-Man issue no matter how much it costs to keep their collection going. But they're not picking up new stuff at that same price.
Right.
Oh, wow, we're almost to Spawn 350. This is Spawn 348.
Yeah, there was an article that talked about that it's going to hit 350 next year.
It's going to hit in 2 months. You said next year, and I was thinking it was a long ways ago. And I'm like, oh no, it's December. I'm like, next year? No, it's only 2 issues away. I'm like, oh, it's December.
So Todd is not writing it. What is he? Is he doing anything in it?
Occasionally, you will see additional script by Todd. Oh, yeah, this one too. It says Rory McConville, script plot, Todd McFarlane, additional script.
Okay.
Whatever that means. I figure he writes those TV pages that I skip all the time. Because there were none of those in this issue. But it's been a big Spawn heaven and hell war going on with different people were dying in this issue. Thin, who's trying to get the throne of hell, one of the people he's like the most powerful villain in the book, and he was just wiping people out. But then his right-hand man died, so.
Okay.
If you die in a hell war, where do you go?
Under hell?
I don't know.
The under hell.
Did you look at any comic books in the store, Chris?
No. No.
So you just went for the ride? Did you go into the store? You set foot in the store. How long were you there?
Well, I don't know. I was probably there for like an hour or maybe half hour. We went to lunch, came back, but I was drawing this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Mostly.
So you actually didn't. So you didn't take a break. You just got out of the studio to draw someplace else.
He had a mobile studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the sort of thing you can draw anywhere versus like most other stuff you kind of need to be set up at a table or something.
Were you actually drawing in the car?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was doing pencils in the car, and then once we got to the store, I started inking. But these are just markers with these are just Sharpie and crayon.
Okay.
It's Captain America. My best. This is my best translation of like what his Avengers Twilight costume looks like.
Kind
of hard to tell because it's like there's 3 or 4 images of him floating around and they're not exactly the same.
Okay. I thought he was movie cap, but any cap with like those straps, I think, is movie cap.
Yeah. Or ultimate cap.
Yeah,
they really don't like those wings on his head.
No.
Let's
see, we got some comments here. Tit Goblin, has anyone ever used those artist grade art crayons? I have. Don't even remember them. They never did anything for me. But I had some years and years and years ago and never could do anything with them.
Crayon. I've never heard of them.
They're just like, rather than being kids stuff, they're like an art supply. You get a tin of them. They've got like a French name. I might still have a tin buried somewhere around here, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look for it. You can write that metallic cover off on your taxes, and I will. Top 10, number 7, if anyone wants to check it out. Ah, that's the Godzilla one? All right. Wilson will write that down because he's a Godzilla fan. I'm just a Godzilla comic book fan, casual. Some Philadelphia books at my shop had bad color breaks. Wow. Pull box customers were nice about it. Yeah. Well, there's some, like, you know, sometimes, you know, like I got a matter of fact, he never got a new one in a messed up Usagi Yojimbo, like that edition, a process edition. And it's like, oh well, you know, sometimes I would prefer my comics to be in pristine condition, but a random issue of Usagi Yojimbo is going to be worth just as much messed up as it is mint condition. You know, nothing. I think Philadelphia is like that too. I read one issue of Philadelphia. I think I read it was a few months ago. I was like, you know what? This book has been out for like 25 issues. I may as well read an issue of it. Read an issue of it. It was okay. I think it was vampires, right? Have you guys ever read Philadelphia?
No.
I think Image puts it out. I forget who the creators are, but it's been going for a while now. P, I picked up the new G.I. Joe issue 302 this week and enjoyed it. I'm a G.I. Joe fan. So I picked up issue 300 just because I liked the cover. I got to say, I enjoyed it too. It was a well-done comic. I just, you know, don't have that much interest in G.I. Joe, so I didn't pick up any. Like I said, if it was $1 and all my other comics were $1, I might pick it up. Customers actually complain that their comic never runs out, so you can charge them anything. Japanese ink company tells me the same thing with their product. That's a joke about the Copic marker refills. Who don't know it out there. Copic marker made their refills smaller. Then I read somebody at the company say something like, "We did this because the customers demanded it. They said their refills were so big they were never running out." That doesn't sound like a real complaint to me. Theory. Chris went to the comic shops, didn't buy anything, didn't look at anything, just to mess with Jared. That's Eric P's theory, Chris.
If I had thought of that, for sure I would have done it. So next time.
I stood outside all afternoon. I refused to go in. Top 10, number 7 is the one with Odin in his family. Okay, not Godzilla. As I recall, Godzilla shows up in top 10, number 1. I might have
top 10,
number 1.
I might have that.
Did you say Godzilla?
I have no idea. Apt naturally. Gub. I have a Gub. What's a Gub? A Woody Allen movie. Which one was that? Bananas? Where he misspells the bank robbery note and it causes chaos?
I don't recall ever seeing that one.
Speaking of chaos, that does sound like something that a Get Smart villain would say.
Yeah.
That was Take the Money and Run. Okay. Back when Woody Allen was doing pure comedies in the beginning.
Another book that I picked up is Uncanny Spider-Man number 5.
Let's see it. Hold on.
And it continues the story of Nightcrawler trying to get into trying to clear his name. Trying to, basically, his main villain in this is the Vulture, who's the head of a organization calling themselves, I think, Orchid. The Orchid Project, which they're basically hired to go after mutants. Most of the mutants are missing. Professor X took them off Earth, and only a handful of mutants are still on Earth, Nightcrawler being one of them. And through the course of the story, he's being chased by Silver Sable, who he starts to develop a relationship with. And this is basically the conclusion of that particular storyline. It almost ends like if this could have been just a 5-issue miniseries. I am not sure because there's nothing really to indicate what the next issue is going to be about.
That drives me crazy when I don't know if something is a mini or not.
Right. And it basically tells you, follow the plight of mutant kind in X-Men number 30 and follow Spider-Man's thread into Amazing Spider-Man 41. I do not like the designs for this ad, but that's the design of this X book. I don't know if all the X-Men books have them because I haven't read any of the other ones. That's just basically the designs of the credits page. We're paying $5 a book or $4 a book. We paid for a colored book. I don't know why those pages are in black and white. The rest of the pages are in color, of course. And it's an enjoyable story going on.
They're trying to make it look punk rock, man.
I guess so. Warlock appears in it.
Warlock? Is that what's...
That's Warlock from the New Mutants. He appears in it. That's fun. There's some Spider-Man villains because it is a Spider-Man book, kind of.
I was talking to my friend Rob at the comic shop this week, and he said he was enjoying that one.
Mm-hmm. I'm liking it. It's a bit fun. It doesn't want me to. I don't feel like I need to read the other X-Men books. So I like it as a standalone story. If it continues, I'll continue getting it. So, again, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, it piqued my interest enough that I'll keep getting it. I just don't know if it's like a must-have, for lack of a better term. For me,
it's a solid
B. Yes. Like, I'm enjoying it. Nightcrawler is one of those X-Men characters that I really enjoyed. And I don't think it needed to be connected to Spider-Man. I get it as part of whatever the storyline, so they can have another toy come out.
I see what happened now. Mm-hmm. They can't sell a Nightcrawler comic. But if you make a Nightcrawler Spider-Man, you can sell that because it's Spider-Man. They found a new way
to sell a book.
Just make everyone Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. There you go. And I'm trying to remember, did Nightcrawler ever have his own book other than the 4-issue miniseries that came out in the 80s?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he ever had his own title.
No, he had a comic about 6 or 7 years ago. It lasted for, I think it went past a year. But he was a Catholic priest again.
Oh, okay.
Tit Goblin asks, could you get sued if you made a character called Gobzilla?
By putting Zilla?
Likely that falls under parody, but Gubzilla, with him wearing glasses and being a terrible criminal, might get you sued by Woody Allen. It wouldn't get you sued; it'd get you cease and desist.
Right.
If you did more than one. I learned this from Don Daly in the early '90s at Marvel, where someone had just put out a Punisher parody book, like an indie Punisher parody book that did pretty well. So they wanted to put out more Punisher parody books, and they got a call from Don Daly, the Punisher editor at Marvel. I said, dudes, you can, if it's parody, you can do it once. You can't make it a continuing series. Otherwise, Marvel is gonna have a say in it.
Right.
So they didn't.
If you use Zilla,
right,
in anything, you would get a cease and desist. And Japanese law works differently. They shut down a sushi restaurant called Godzilla Sushi because they used the whole name Godzilla.
Right.
And then there was a parody, something called Catzilla. But by using the name Zilla, they still got a cease and desist. So Toho is not does not let it go. Marvel got sued, or Marvel got in trouble for Godzilla appearing in an Amazing Spider-Man comic. Even though Marvel did the Godzilla comic, they put, and I think they called him Godzilla in the comic. That was the other mistake. But they drew an issue of Spider-Man. Mark Bagley did the artwork, I believe. And Godzilla appeared in the background as a toy because the toy master or whatever villain of the week was made made Spider-Man think he shrunk and got put into a toy room with all these toys. They turned out that all these toys were really, Spider-Man was a regular size and all these toys were giant size. And Godzilla appeared in the background, and apparently Toho got called. And so and the only reason why I was involved is because I had to show the Godzilla comic that Marvel did. But Marvel's Godzilla comic looks nothing like the Godzilla that was drawn, because the Godzilla that was drawn in that Spider-Man book was drawn to look like the 90s Godzilla that was currently out at the time period. So Marvel was asked to have all those books destroyed. And it's like, we can't, because those books already were printed and were sent out. So by the time Toho called Marvel, it was too late. The books were out. So Marvel had to correct the artwork to print a new image of Godzilla and to another monster entirely to appease Toho. And any reprints with that book in it has to have the new artwork. Which, by the way, I saw the trade paperback that was printed out way after that, and they never changed the art. The artwork is still the original. But they were appeased enough that Marvel didn't get into, as far as I'm aware of, financial trouble. But they did receive a call for it. So Toho does hold on to that Godzilla license tightly.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, the one comic that disappointed me this week, I picked up, I don't know how to pronounce this word. Is it Gumma or Gumme? G-U-M-A-A? How do you pronounce two A's at the end of a name? I don't know.
I'll pronounce it Guma.
Guma. I don't know.
Jama.
Guma. Is she a Guma?
Is it like GIF and GIF? Is it Goo or Ja? Jama.
Hey, Paisan, is that your Guma?
But it's from Titan Comics, written and created by Jae-Young Lee, J-E-E-H-Y-U-N-G, all one name, and then Lee, L-E-E. And $5 comic, but I think it's 40 pages. What does it say in the back? Urban fantasy laced with horror and noir, brought to incredible life with Jae-Young's phenomenal artwork. You owe it to yourself to check out Guma. But it turns out that concept, script, and layouts are by Jae-Young Lee. Pencils and inks are by Namaste Zetro. And then co-pencils, colors, and lettering by Jae-Young Lee. I'm like, pencils and inks are by a completely different guy. It was just weird. But, and I am not a fan of this lettering. I gotta say, the lettering was completely distracting with these misshapen balloons and lettering sort of floating and it looked very amateurish to me, this lettering. I
wonder if it was printed in another language first.
I think Jae-Young Lee did the lettering. So he did the lettering himself. What's the word? The auteur. And I think it was a bad idea for him to do his own lettering because it's just not good. I don't know if this font is either, but it's just not good.
Right. It almost looks to me like it was printed in another language first and then translated into English, and they just kept the same balloons.
Could have been.
Because that book looks a lot like what a manga book looks like when it's translated in a rushed way.
I know what you mean. But the artwork was nice. The storytelling was nice. I just didn't get into the story, which was there's two different stories going on. First, there's Downtown Mellonfield City, 1999. And it's this guy out on the street and with this woman which these zombies with knives attack them or something. And then they go to this church where this woman is in the church and she just waves her hand and defeats all the zombies and is like, go clean them up or something. And then we switch over. They said that was 1999. Then we switch over to, where's the date? It's like 1984 or something. I think there's another date here, unless I'm misremembering. No, Downtown Mellonfield City, 1984. And all of a sudden, the rest of the story is about these drug dealers who also have a bunch of women who they give drugs to and force into prostitution. And it's about one of the women was trying to escape, so they capture her and torture her. And then the other women then it spends the rest of if you're a woman in the second story, you're forced into sex slavery and you're not very happy. But I don't know where that is. I have no idea what the second story has to do with the first. And remember that comic from a few weeks ago where I said there was too much robot sex slavery in it or something like that? For my taste, there was too much human sex slavery in it for my taste, this one. Especially with nothing, there was like no point to it, I didn't think. But so I was disappointed in this one, not going to get any more, but it was okay. Not horrible. Let's see what he says here. Gore Vidal, good evening. I did not know what to make of Gamma. I liked it, though. I think it was a Kickstarter book. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it either. I was just like, it was the one that kind of disappointed me out of the 7 first issues I got. I agree with you about the lettering. Yeah, the lettering was just distracting. And it's so hard to do your own lettering when you're doing everything else. It really is. Because by the time you get to the lettering, you're like, oh, I came up with this idea. I'm not going to use any shaped balloons. I'm just going to leave them whatever. That's a brilliant idea. And it seems like a good idea at the time because you're really tired from doing the rest of the book. And Titan is British, right?
Yes, I
They're
believe
over
so.
in merry old England. And I actually checked before I bought it. Once again, the splash page is the credits, but at least it's the creator credits and not just the company credits. So I was like, all right, I'll buy it since the creator, because I stopped buying Conan from Titan just because the splash page was nothing but the company credits. I was like, no. See, that's not only price, it's bad design.
Yeah, Stan Lee was right about give him a open the comic for first image has got to pull you in.
Yeah.
What pulls me in? Written by, art by. Okay.
Yep. Stan Lee may have spoken out of both sides of his mouth, but he knew how to sell comics.
But I bet the artists now, they don't want to see their first page or even their second page with credits all over their art.
Yeah.
Or the indicia. Well, why not? You set up the page for that. There.
Indicias, they are nothing but a pain. Here's another one. This is a one shot I got this week that I don't think I realized was coming out. It's called Shift It's from the Radiant Blacks series and universe. And I'm not sure if these are reprints or not. Because there's about how many stories? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, about 6 or 7, 5 stories of around 8 pages apiece. So and he is like one of the villains he was one of the villains in Radiant Black. This is just kind of his story. And I think there were short stories of him in like that Image anthology too, which I read. But so I was like, should I buy this? Do I already have these stories? But none of them looked familiar, and I ended up buying it. And in reading it, none of them sounded familiar, but they're just short stories. But in the back, we have, I think some of them were in the trade paperbacks or something, because it says Radiant Black number 9, collected in Radiant Black number 2. Shift chapters 1 through 4, collected in Shift one shot. So I guess they're only here. Radiant Red 1 through 5, collected. I don't know if these are reprints or not, but in the end, I don't think I read them before. And they're fun stories. They were just stories about this villain getting his gang together and gathering up his powers. All written by Kyle Higgins, but drawn by Danielle de Nucleo, Nicuolo, Francesco Mana and Danilo Beiruth, Geraldo Borges, Chris Evan Evenhuis. So, lots of different artists I've never heard of who all did a pretty good job.
Or can pronounce.
Or can pronounce. Well, I just think not that I can pronounce, all the different names here, but I think there's also a lot of people from other countries working in American comics these days, even in little indie stuff like this. So there's lots of different names to learn to pronounce. Not that living in the New York area, most of those names aren't already here, but. What does Gorvidal say here? Putting aside my Saga problem, the book hasn't recovered from the 3-year hiatus. Just 3 people have it on their pull list. The extra issues don't sell. Neither do the trip. Yeah, the hiatus killed Saga. Still on my pull list, but I've heard one of the complaints I heard from the retailer reading stuff I did this week is that they need a book like Saga to pull in everybody again, because Saga's not doing it. The 3-year hiatus just, you know what it is too? From watching YouTube, I think there's a 3 or 4 year turnover of comic book fans. Like, people collect comic books only for 3 or 4 years and then stop. So I think a lot of the people who were collecting Saga left over that 3-year hiatus. I mean, certainly not all of them. But I think a good chunk, maybe a third of them probably did. Because I think it's selling a third less than it used to.
I think it probably correlates with schools.
Yeah.
When school starts and people are hanging out for the first time, and if you happen to find that comic book clique, they're all sharing books. And then they're there for the 4 years.
Or high school, right?
Right. So they're there for that 4-year period, and then they go off onto the next adventure, so to speak, and they may not continue because they're not hanging out with that comic book clique anymore.
Right. That's a good name. Before the hiatus, it was a popular comic book and trades moved. Yeah. I think I saw the number when they came back, something like 11 million Saga trades worldwide had been sold. That's a crazy number. Were the Saga base high school students, college age, or older? Good question. I knew some younger people who were into it, but I think it was a mix of people. And I think like old, probably the old Wednesday Warriors like me still buy it, but all the people it brought in, I think, don't. Because like it's still on my pull list, so I still buy it and enjoy it. But I think that the more younger, more casual fans, or even the ones who were really into it at the time, let's say that 3-year hiatus, just
3 years is a long time for comics.
yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a mix, but many women. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right there. A local book I picked up this week is the new Transformers, the book that's bringing people in the way Saga did. It might be, but I think it's bringing people back. I think that's a nostalgia book. So I don't know if it'll bring people in like Saga did, but it might bring people in like the New 52 book did. When the New 52 was started, as much as there were people who didn't like it, it brought a lot of people back to buying DC stuff. So Transformers might be more like that. A friend of mine met his future wife through Saga. Wow. My LCS had a lot of people there for the Transformer book. Yeah, but I think it is bringing people in, but like I said, I think you have to already be a Transformers fan, of which there are plenty. So what the heck? Do either of you got? Well, you do, Chris. Know Mike Dolce?
Yes.
He used to play touch football with us, Chris.
He might be listening to music, or he is talking. I think you're mute, Chris.
I don't recognize the name, but if you're saying we played football, then
he was.
I wouldn't dispute that.
I think Mike Raich brought him around. I think he was a friend of Mike Raich's, and he used to come and play football with us. But he's been putting out Kickstarter books for years. Here's a bunch of them, but I never got any of them, just because like I don't do that much Kickstarter. But over the last 10 years, I probably saw him 2 or 3 times at my LCS. I always chat with him every time. But this is the first one, the Sire, that's distributed to comic shops. So I saw it there at the counter, and I was like, you know what? I may as well get it. $5 indie book. He said, I don't mind paying extra for small press books because that's what you're supposed to do. Right. You know, Marvel and DC are not supposed to be the most expensive books on the stands.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about he describes it as what is it? Got 2 trade paperbacks out. He calls it an homage to 90s superhero comics. This is a Dave Johnson cover, too. Mike did everything except draw it. The art is by someone named Daniel Leister. Let me show it to you. The art's got sort of an amateurish quality to it, but the layouts are very good. I wasn't a huge fan of the actual drawing, but I liked the storytelling. The artist is a good storyteller. His layouts were all smooth and involving. And I guess I would call it it's kind of it's a superhero book, and it kind of reads like a 90s superhero book, but without sort of the excesses of it. It's not like a 90s parody superhero book, like indulging in the excesses kind of thing. But the concept is the Sire here. This is the first issue of it I've ever read. He's got this kind of suit that gives him superpowers. And I guess the suit is somehow sentient. And he gets messages from the suit that tells him there's some other superpowered person out there. And he has to go, and the suit makes him see if that person is worthy of the superpowers. And if not, absorb take the superpowers away. And it also takes place in a world that doesn't know that superpowered people exist. That was part of the plot of this first issue. And he's trying to keep he's got a secret identity as it's like a behind the scenes guy on like a TV or webcast or something. But what happens is when the suit wants him to go and check out this guy, it starts appearing on his body. So he's trying to keep his secret identity, but the super suit is like, he has to like run away when and his boss is really pissed at him, of course. He's got one coworker who knows his secret. And then like he ran into a problem. There was two like villains in this. I put that in quotes. The one he fought, but then for some reason couldn't take his superpowers away. He's like, "Oh, you didn't get superpowers from the same place as the suit?" And the other was the other part of the story. And there's a reporter and there's people trying to expose the fact that there are superpowered people. But other people just won't believe them because they stay underground. But he fought this other guy with this laser arm. The problem is the guy with the laser arm doesn't want a laser arm. He doesn't want these superpowers. So when he went there to check him out, he fought him a little. And then it was like, crap, you're worthy to have these powers. I can't take them away. The guy's like, no, take them away. He's like, I can't. So it was an interesting. It was interesting. Like I said, I picked it up because used to play touch football with Mike in those Wizard Marvel touch football games. But I put it on my pull list. I think it's a 5-issue mini. Somewhere it says 5 issues. So we'll go with that one. It was enjoyable.
I need to pick that up. I know him from I don't know him from Marvel. I don't think we ever met because I didn't play the games.
He wasn't actually at Marvel or Wizard, I don't think. He was friends with Mike Raich, who was at Marvel.
Right, but he's been in comics, an indie comic person for quite some
time now.
For a long time. So I know him from the War of the Independents, Dave Ryan's book. Right. So when Dave Ryan did
War of the Independents,
yeah. So he lent his character to War of the Independents. My characters are in there as well, and I was lettering and coloring the book for the first few issues. So I'm familiar with the character. And then now, years later, I've worked with him putting together pre-press stuff for a company he does work for that's outside of the comic book stuff. Although it's comic book related. They're graphic novels with artwork, but it's more of a book with artwork in it than it is a comic book. So I done some work, pre-press work with him on that.
Okay.
So I need to find that. So when I go to my comic shop, I'll keep an eye out for that book.
The Sire. And there a Bad Idea comic came out this week. The Destroyer, which is, what is this, a 60-page comic? It was $10.
This is not Remo Williams, the Destroyer, right?
Nope. It's more a tie-in to, that movie, Oppenheimer.
Okay.
I am the Destroyer of Worlds kind of thing. And this was really good. It's funny. I did all the production on it. I had no idea what it was about. Because I don't read them when I'm doing production on them.
I know exactly what you mean.
And as a matter of fact, I saw this at the shop, picked it up, and went, it's true. Because a lot of the other stuff, at least I knew what it was about. As Odin's Eye, that's not hard to figure out what it's about. Pirate Queen, that's not hard to figure out what it was about, The Destroyer, I was like, I have no clue. It's by people. There's a hero trade, Matt Kint and David Lapham story in the back, but the main story is by people I hadn't heard of either. May Catt is the writer. Maecatt. I don't know who that is. Alberto Ponticelli is the artist. with Dave Barron doing the color art. I don't know if these guys have ever. I don't think they've done stuff for Bad Idea before. Dave Sharp on the letters. So we're going to get good lettering in this one, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But this was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. Nice Destroyer cover. Yeah, nice cover. I got the varnish on it. But like even this blurry logo at the edges, the artist did that. That was like usually, often the production guy takes care of whatever's going on with the logo. But they did their own thing with the logo, so I didn't have to do anything with it. So, but it looks nice, the logo, except put varnish on it.
Yeah.
But this is like, I guess you'd call it body horror. The way it ties in with Oppenheimer is our lead character. Let me show you some of the inside art. And it's also a square-bound one. There's our lead character dying of radiation poisoning. And he was one of the scientists on the Manhattan Project. So it takes place in the 40s, early 40s, WW2. And something, and he's, of course, everybody is thrilled that the bomb works. And this guy's a little upset because, he's like, oh, geez, we just made an atomic bomb. And then something happens to him. Where is it? I don't even know what it is. He gets a dose of radiation. There he is with his guts hanging out. So he gets a dose of radiation, and this is where the body horror comes in. Somehow that radiation creates a copy of himself inside his mind. So he's got himself dying of radiation poisoning, and this other version of himself in his head who's trying to save him by transforming his body. How they're transforming his body, we don't know what's going on. So all this horror stuff is going on. And meanwhile, I don't know what to call this. There's been like a subgenre of horror that's popped up where he's also a gay man closeted in the 1940s. So that's like his own version of horror. Because what he's also going through is he's got like a boyfriend on base who's a soldier. So they're but of course they can't let anybody know that they're involved because being gay in the 40s would even get you kicked right off the project. And then after the project is over, his boyfriend, the soldier, is like, I'm out of here. He's like, I told you I had a girl back. So he's going back home to marry his high school sweetheart who he's supposed to be married all the time. Even though he's gay and in the closet, he's getting married and having a family because that's what you did in the 1940s. So meanwhile, this guy's dying of heartbreak too, because being gay and closeted in the 1940s is its own heartbreak. And which I notice is like a shove. That's like, I guess it's a subgenre you can add on to any horror story. It's like, this is the horror story that's going on, and you're a gay man, a closeted gay man in the 1940s or 1950s. And I was like, I've noticed that in a few stories over the years. I'm like, that's its own it's like an add-on to a horror story. And you've got this horror going on. But really well written, really well, I got into it. Very well done. Effective sort of horror. As you're hanging on, it's mostly just this guy and his voice deteriorating. But at one point, the army comes after him, or he tries to go back to the army. He wants to go back to the nuclear test because this voice in his head says, I need more energy to transform your body so you can live. So he wants to go back to where the bomb is going off to get some energy from the bomb. How? He doesn't know. And then the army is there because he's been, messing things. It's not been pleasant, him going around looking for his ex-boyfriend and trying to figure out what's going on with his life. really enjoyed this one. Body horror and closeted gay man horror. But one of the best Bad Idea comics I've read, I have to say. And I've liked a lot. Bad Idea has done some good comics, I have to say. But one worth the $10 if you want a good read. Nice to see. Oppenheimer was excellent. It was one of the loudest films I've seen in theaters. Next door, those Barbie wash complained about the sound, according to a buddy who worked there. Yeah, like I said, that was real. I must say, it kind of took me by surprise too, only because I had no idea. I realized I had no idea what it was about, even after doing the production.
Yeah, depending on the project, sometimes I don't have time to read through it or anything. Just
because that's not your job.
Putting it together, exactly. You know, it's just if I happen to have lettered it and did the production, then I at least kind of know what's going on. But you know, a book like Loud House, I don't get the book in any particular order because they're like little chunks of stories, and then eventually all the stories kind of connect. But when I'm getting them to 3 pages to 5 pages, even 1-page stories, and they kind of have a theme to it. And the funny thing with the book is sometimes, you know, it's a 3-page story is usually a gag. And sometimes the gag doesn't land for me. I mean, the book's not really made for me anyway. It's a kid's book. But sometimes I'll read it and go, it's not where I thought it was going. You know, because sometimes you get used to a trope. Right. And then you read it like that wasn't going anywhere where I thought it would go.
And a lot of times when I'm doing this Bad Idea stuff, like I said, I don't actually read it, but I kind of know what's going on from putting the book together and seeing the artwork. But then a lot of times when I finally do read the printed copy, I'm like, it's like a different context all of a sudden. You're like, oh, that's what that meant. Because I might get a bit from here, a bit from page 2, a bit from page 8, a bit from page 15, but they don't all go together in my head until I finally read it.
Right.
The printed copy. Speaking of, I forgot about this one, closeted gay man horror. We got another book with sort of that theme. This is The Deviant, issue 2. Who's doing that? Pardon me. I think James Tinian is writing it, and Joshua Hickson is drawing it, and it's a crime noir book, and it's really well. I like the art on it, which is sort of this David Mazzucchelli indie style, I call it, which is everywhere. It's been everywhere for a decade. It just seems very Mazzucchelli influenced, but indie style. You know, it's not Batman or anything like that. I don't know if it was Mazzucchelli influenced, but that's just, for some reason, that's what it reminds me of. But this is a story about the lead character wants to do a comic book about this criminal case from his hometown. And so he goes to the prison to interview the killer, who's I guess he'd be a spree killer, maybe a serial killer, I don't know what, who's been in jail for the last 30 years for this. Meanwhile, there's also, it seems like there's a copycat killer out there too, who just appeared after 30 years or whatever. But that story that hasn't really gotten into that part of the story yet. But the closeted gay part is not only the lead character is gay. He's not closeted because it's this, you know, because it's 2023. But the killer, who's been in jail for 30 or so years was a closeted gay man at the time. And he says he didn't do these killings. We don't know if he did or not as readers, but he says he didn't do them. But he's sort of this is him, right? He goes to and he's this cynical prisoner who's been in prison for 30 years or something, who says he didn't. He's stuck to his same he didn't do it story the whole time. So there's another, you know, closeted gay man horror story if he didn't do it. Add on to the rest of the horror story, but really well done. Enjoy the artwork is terrific. I like the writing is good too, and it's like one of the reasons that the lead character, who's a writer, wants to do a comic book about this guy. Besides that, he's a comic book writer, is that he says, and he's talking to this guy, when he was a kid, a 10-year-old kid when the murders happened, and this guy got arrested for it. And the first time this kid heard about being gay was this murderer. That was the first time, like, the idea of gayness entered his world to this little gay kid. So that was a distinct thing from his childhood, that he is, wondered about himself. Is he a killer? Since the first gay person he heard about was a serial killer, he's, thought all his life, he's associated the two things all his life. So that's part of why he wants to do this comic book. So lots of different layers to this noir story, and very enjoyable. The Deviant, number 2. A lot of good stuff. That's one I just got a first issue, and this one I bought just for its cover, and it's good because it's one of those. It's not quite an Archie horror book, but I guess it could be. But it's the Sabrina the Teenage Witch holiday special, and the holiday is the the equinox, the
solstice.
The solstice, yes, the winter solstice. That's the actual. Once again, some really nice artwork on this first story. 2 10-page stories. Really nice artwork. Same person who did the cover. It's Veronica Fish. Like I said, it was this cover that caught. This came out last week, but it wasn't in the budget since I bought that hardcover. But I just actually the alternate cover is really nice too. I was like, ooh, here's the alternate cover by Laura Braga right there. I liked that one a lot too.
That is a nice cover.
Yeah, so both of them really, really nice. And Archie does a nice job. Oh, and the second, there's 2 artists. The second artist is Veronica Johnson with colors by Matt Herms. Not quite as good as the first artist, but good enough. And the first story is one of Sabrina's friends got taken by some demon in another dimension, and they got to rescue her. And the second story is one of the witches, her parents died or something years ago, and if you visit the graveyard on the solstice, you can see their ghosts, but you shouldn't do that because it's not really their ghosts. It's a couple of troublemaking demons or whatever. But this one teenage girl just wanted to see her grandparents or parents, so she went there. And these troublemakers, they cast some spell over the town. I forget what it was. Caused a blizzard and stuff, and then they had to go. And so this could be an Archie horror comic rather than Archie comic. But I like that cover a lot. So this is the second comic that the cover really sold me on this week. The metal one and this one. Like I said, I noticed it last week, but it wasn't in the budget. Let's see. Let's get these last 2 out of the way quickly. Geiger Ground Zero, issue 2 of 2. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank doing the origin of Geiger. And it was good 2-issue mini. I liked it. And the last one is Creep Show issue. I thought there was going to be 6 issues. There's only 5 issues. Another Guillaume March cover. Here, we'll show you. Horror, 2 10-page horror anthologies. Writer artist Nick Dragotta. Do you know him, Chris?
He interned at the same time I did.
Oh, okay. I thought you knew him.
You should know him.
I should know him, but I don't remember him. But there was a lot of interns there at my time. I think I remember
I can't
you
believe you don't
telling
remember every single intern.
I was
Yeah.
a lot of them remember me because I always made it to be a point to be nice to the interns. And the next one is who's the artist on it? Because so many people Morissette, one name, Mauricet. Mike Spicer, the colorist, and Pat Brousseau lettered it. But I would have to say the first story read like a pre-code story because it was just sort of about a woman and her young son who didn't return carts to the grocery store cart rack, and bad things happened to them. It was like there was no twist, there was no lesson. It was just these two people are jerks, and the monster got them. And the second story was about this woman going to a old age home. Her children were putting her in, but she's got a magical amulet to protect her. And there's a twist at the end of this one, so it was kind of different. Different than the first one, where just bad things happen. But nice. I've enjoying this series. I've especially liked the covers. And all the covers I've liked. They've got lots of good horror covers on that one. Let's see. Deviant is a popular book here, too. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I don't know how popular it is in my shop, but I liked it. It was good stuff. Chris could have got it, but he wasn't interested in buying comics. He just wanted to draw, man. Could you trade your friend a drawing for comics?
I don't know.
You have to try that. Say, hey.
I'll give it a shot. I mean, I occasionally trade him money for comics.
Uh-huh. I wonder, did you guys ever hear about, I can't remember if it was the 80s or the 90s, the artist who drew his own money?
I've heard about that guy. I don't know that was he a comic book guy?
No, he was not a comic book guy. He was just
a
fine artist.
It's not the Emperor of New York, right?
I don't know what he would do.
There was a guy who called himself the Emperor of New York, and he had his own currency.
No,
I don't know if he drew it himself.
What he would do was
it was counterfeit. He was just drawing counterfeit, and they were so convincing. He'd spend it and get change, and then that's how he got money.
No, that's not it.
Is that right?
No. What he would do was he'd draw his own money. It wouldn't be counterfeit. And he'd go, if he was at a restaurant, if he was buying something, he'd always talk to whoever the owner was and whatever. He says, listen, I drew this this is my art. I drew this piece of art. It's $100 bill or whatever. He said, I want to pay my dinner with it. If you want the art, you just treat it like $100 bill and give me change as if it was $100 bill. That's the art. You get to keep the piece of the art, and we have this exchange. And he'd explain that to him, and some people would say yes, and some people would say no. He said no. He paid him with greenbacks. But I remember I heard
I feel like Tim Smith told me that story.
What was that?
I feel like Tim Smith told me a version of that.
He could have. Like I said, I think it was in the 90s this guy was around. That was part of his art.
But yeah, it became known after a while, like, wow, That guy's art is very valuable. So if you ever encounter this guy, definitely say yes.
Yeah. His art did become more valuable over time. So the people made a good deal. Mm-hmm. So Paulo, start drawing money. Now that you know how to talk him into it, listen. Treat this like $100 bill that I drew. And it wasn't counterfeiting because he didn't draw it to look like an actual $100 bill. No one was going to confuse his money with actual money. State printed money.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah, I do too.
I gotta start drawing some dollar bills.
So I think that was a pretty darn good week at the comic shop for me in terms of. I think I had a higher batting average buying first issues than normal. Like bought just for its cover. So, but interesting. A process issue. Let's see. Bought just for its cover, but I knew I'd like it because Archie's been doing a good job with these horror books. Godzilla War for Humanity #3 was a hit. I'm gonna buy more of those. Beyond Real got on my pull list for however many issues this is going. It's probably a mini. Deviant #2, I bought #1 a few weeks ago. Gamma was the only miss. Did not make it onto the pull list. Shift was only a one-shot, but a solid one-shot. It'll go with my Radiant comic. Radiant Black. There we go. Sire, good comic, one on the pull list. Destroyer. Of course, I was going to get this one because I worked on it, but it was really good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So a lot of good comics to read this week. For all you, there's no good comics to buy out there, people. You don't know what you're talking about.
And the last book on my list, off my pull, is which I did not read, although I read all the other ones today. Is Amazing Spider-Man issue #40, which continues the gang war. Which is like I said. No, that is a character named Tombstone.
Okay, Tombstone.
Yeah, he had he survived an assassination attempt, and that started the gang war. And he was in the hospital. Since I haven't read this issue, but speaking of maps, we have the territories.
All right,
from the gang
war map.
So this is who controls what parts of the territory in New York, and the gang war is just getting started because since the assassination attempt, even though I was complaining about the design from Nightcrawler, Spider-Man, it works.
Okay.
Because there's a bit of color.
And they just give you the classic logo, and so it's not supposed to be punk rock like the other one.
Right. So you got the credits page there, all the people that worked on it, all the extra covers. And like I mentioned, I've only started reading it. Spider-Man needs to get a team of people together to fight in this gang war. And the one downside to it is how much homework is involved for the story.
And
but
what
again,
I mean
that yellow works.
What I mean when I describe something like that design as punk rock is it's supposed to have a sort of do-it-yourself aesthetic. Except that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
You have to be super aware.
For Spider-Punk, speaking of punk rock.
Once again, that's supposed to have a do-it-yourself aesthetic. Hence, they pasted up all the different letters from other logos.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little too slick.
Yeah.
That's always what happens.
Yeah, it is quite slick. But art's good. I'm looking forward to this. Again, it has some feeling of the original gang war. So Daredevil's in this one. And beautiful art by John Romita Jr. Scott Hanna, I believe, is inking it. Let me double check that. Yep, Scott Hanna.
So, what artist would you 100% take that deal from, Eric P? What was the question? What did I say? I can't remember.
The money.
I can't remember what the deal was.
The money. Here's this. You can take this instead of money.
Oh, okay, that deal. Lots of them.
Yeah, I if you give me original comic book art, that's perfectly fine.
I do trade money for original comic book art. But
Yeah.
no, somebody, I mean, there's so many
Like if they
artists.
were to draw their own money, I don't know. I mean, technically, we have a good sized paper from our days at Marvel.
Yeah.
There'll be a big
Draw
size
money
money.
on it.
So if you could draw money on that. I
Okay,
think that would be kind of fun.
I'd take that deal from who is it? I'd take that deal from whoever this artist is, Jake Smith of Godzilla. If he wanted to draw his own $100 bill, I'd probably take it. Let's see who else. What's her name? Vicky Fish. Whoever did this cover, I'd probably take it from her. Guillaume March. I'd probably take the money from him too, if he wanted to draw me $100 bill. That's about it in this. I would not take it from Ji Hung Lee. Sorry. I might take it from whoever did this Beyond Real. I like the artwork in this. Who did this again? Artists are Fabiano Mascolo, Mascolo, and Tony. I don't know how to pronounce a J next to a Z. Fejzula. Fedzula?
Fees.
What was
that? You have to pronounce the J as a Y.
Fejzula.
Fejzula.
Okay, Fejzula. Easy, he says. You have to pronounce the J as a Y.
Of course you have to pronounce the J as a Y. What else would you pronounce it as?
Yeah. Silly Americans. Not knowing how to pronounce anything. But yeah, I'd take it from Sean Phillips. I'd probably take that deal. I would 100% take it from Beto.
Yeah.
I'd take it from Mark Chiarello. There's a lot of people who could draw me $100 bills. What are the odds Chris gets to the comic shop this week?
Well, if
you asking me, or are you asking everyone to weigh in?
Well, if you go to a comic shop to sell your comics,
you think you'd have a better chance? Isn't there a comic shop within walking distance from your studio? Oh, but that's the one you can't go to.
I can go to it. There's not. Why you shouldn't be saying that publicly?
No.
I'm gonna bail out now.
He can go to it. I'm mistaken. But then again, I thought he mumbled to himself, and that was clearly just in my memory. Memory is a tricky thing.
Look, there's a threshold for how tolerable I am as a person, and I accept that.
and with some people, you reach that threshold quickly, and they don't want to tolerate you.
If people don't want me around, then I will, and it becomes clear to me, which could be wrong a lot of the time. But when I know, then I bow out gracefully.
Chris stops in front of the comic shop, sends Jared a photo from outside, and goes home. That's what Eric P. wants you to do. Look, I'm at the comic shop, not buying anything. See ya. You should all send Chris $5 so he can buy a new comic. Well, it's just about time for us to wrap up.
Yeah, it's that time again, huh?
Unless
You
you
going
want
on
to go 5
TikTok
hours.
tonight, Wilson?
Yeah, I probably will.
Some TikTok Live. How many people do you usually get watching you on TikTok Live?
When you first go on live, you get about 150 people, and then you just see it drop within seconds.
Because it sticks
they
in the live section?
Yeah, you get put into live, and then the TikTok does its announcement or whatever. This person's live. So while people are scrolling, they may stop for a second to see what's going on.
Right.
If I'm showing toys, they may stop for a few seconds, and then you just see the number pop up high, it goes up real quick, and it comes down just as fast, and it kind of stays even at around 4 to 5 people. Sometimes I could be in like the 20s, and it'll stay there for a little while, and then people are just coming and going. And sometimes I'll be speaking, and it's like one person watching, and it's like, and I keep going, and then so I go for like an hour and a half. If there's no real interactions going by, then I call it an early night. I might stop it even though it says you have 4 people watching. It's like there's probably one person watching, and the other 3 probably has me on in the background where they're doing something else.
Right.
And then, but if I get a lot of back and forth interaction, then it bobs up and down the whole night. So when I have a lot of interaction, a lot of questions, then I stay on until the questions basically stop. And a lot of times you're just repeating yourself because someone will go, "Oh, what action figure is that?" And then you just tell whatever story about that action figure. And by the time you're done, somebody new pops up and go, "What action figure is that?" So you are repeating yourself a lot, I notice, or at least I am as I'm going on.
Well, Eric P wants to know your TikTok handle. That is where he puts his weekly comic haul.
Yes, it's Ramos Comics. You could find me everywhere on the internet under Ramos Comics. I have a social network under that name on all of it. So that's the main TikTok handle is Ramos Comics.
Yeah, I put my haul on TikTok, Instagram, the short version, and the long versions on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, so everybody have a good night out there. Let's see.
Take care.
Any balloons?
No balloons.
They got no balloons for us. Oh, there
you
go.
That one's new, isn't it?
No, that one's been around. I think that's the double thumbs up if it actually was. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that we'll ending on a big burst of fireworks. So you guys all have a good night out there. We'll catch you next time.
Take care. Have a great weekend and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.